there's only two really big stories in town at the moment. There's a load of bumfluffery elsewhere. We'll cover that later on in a little roundup in a 60-second video. For now, it's all about El Hadji Malick. Almost automatically called him Magic then. Diouf and, of course, Mohammed Kudus. And it's primarily the Kudus one I want to talk about today. I mean, so much so that we can't even do a daily Kudus. There's just too much detail. There's too much meat on the bone, really, with that. In terms of Diouf, that one's really interesting. So this is happening. It's quite clear that that's what's going on. There's just too many people all saying the same thing, and the club have admitted that he's a player that they admire. There's in the nose transfer sources, all of this stuff. They're all saying the same thing. It looks like this deal is going to happen. We've covered his abilities already earlier on this week, so hopefully you probably all know all about him. A little interesting dynamic though with this guy, because he's 20 years of age, which I think is Ollie Skiles, or he's either 19, just about to turn 20, but for argument's sake, two 20-year-olds. I think that's quite. Look, I'm not entirely sure about this player yet. He looks like he could be very good at the moment. He looks raw, but you can't have it both ways. You can't complain that the squad's too old, then complain when you bring in young players in. And I do think we've always got the nuclear option, if we need to, of taking Wan-Bissaka and playing him over at left wing back, because he's excellent there. But yeah, I don't mind. We've got this couple of 20-year-olds fighting it out for that spot, and I think it'd be really good. I think it'd actually be really, really good for Skiles to not have somebody so senior there that he can't push him out of the team if he gets in a good run of form. I mean, the writing was on the wall for Emerson anyway. Let's be fair. As we've already mentioned, Lopetegui didn't really fancy him. Almost one of the first things Potter did when he came in was sort of boot him out of the team, and he replaced him with Ollie Skiles pretty quickly. And even when Ollie Skiles, he had that little period where he was out of the team, the answer still wasn't to put Emerson back in the team. It was, he even started Soufal there at left wing back at one point, didn't he? Which was odd. He played Wan-Bissaka there, played anybody but. Really, and even when he did play Emerson, he was substituted all the time. So the writing's on the wall that for there. It appears like 25 million euros to get Diouf from Slavia Prague. It was a bit funny last night. I don't know if you saw it, but you had a situation where somebody was leaking the news saying that the deal is done. Diouf to West Ham will be the most expensive transfer in Czech football history. And his claim to fame, as far as I could see, that he had a couple of pictures taken with Thomas Souček at some point. It was funny. I thought good on him. I think he had like 2,000 Twitter followers or something like that, and everyone was clamouring over him and quoting him and retweeting his stuff. He must have been buzzing with that. But hey, look, look. He either had a really good insight on it or he got lucky. Either one's good, isn't it? And so yeah, he was it was quite funny, but it's interesting watching people say, it was very much, my auntie's cousin's neighbour knows a bloke who, okay, yeah, it was a bit like that really. But I do think it's true. I do think it looks like this deal is happening. So that will be good. It'll be good to get the transfer window up and running. And just as I mentioned before, quite telling really that the first deal we'll do is for left back, left wing back, whatever you want to call it, which demonstrates quite how important that position is. And I think it's fair to say more or less the left side didn't function last season. Pretty much anything and everything was coming down that right-hand side. So it's an area that needs to be balanced up. And actually the stuff that's happening with Nathan Gerd is really, really interesting. Actually could have done a video about that. We'll discuss that tomorrow. I'll package that up in a different video if you don't mind. Right, let's move on to Mohammed Kudus. Look, West Ham have got to be prepared to walk away from this, because Tottenham and Daniel Levy are either playing hardball or they're pretending to play hardball. They're playing hardball. Either one is not good, and you have to question how much West Ham need this. A couple of things. The leaks really started this morning that they weren't going to go any higher in their bidding. Now, first of all, the club, West Ham, they're not saying anything. They're not even admitting there's been a bid. So if you were to speak to West Ham, or you were to speak to West Ham, anyone there, the information that seems to be coming back is we've not had an official bid or any approach, any inquiry. If you look at the rumours and you look at the stuff from the in the nose and all that type of stuff, it appears that Tottenham made 2 bids. First one, 50 million. Second one, 55 plus bonuses. I don't know how much of this stuff is true, by the way. I'm giving you the news as it's. There's very much 2 sides to the story. It's up to you which one you believe. Personally, I think they've bid. I don't believe the club version of events. I think they probably have. What constitutes an official bid? An email saying we will offer this. Maybe that hasn't happened, but there's certainly been phone calls. There certainly would have. West Ham will not be in denial that Tottenham want Mohammed Kudus. So I tend to sway towards that version of events. So that the second bid, offer, approach, whatever you want to call it, would appear to have been 55 million plus bonuses. West Ham, of course, well, his buyout clause 85 million. I'm not going to get anywhere near that. I think most people know that, and including West Ham themselves. So the unofficial transfer valuation becomes 65 million. So I think we're really at this situation of how close can Tottenham get to 65 million? Because despite, I mean, the 2 sort of sub-stories really are that Chelsea may come back in for Kudus, and that Saudi, I think it's Al Nassr, might try and persuade him by chucking lots and lots and lots of money at him. But it's most likely he'll go to Tottenham. I think that seems to be the most likely destination at the moment. So it's whether Tottenham can get towards that, what the club would perceive to be that magical £65 million mark. I said this, at the moment Tottenham were linked with Kudus. They will not make this easy. This will not go be the type of deal that gets structured in the way that Declan Rice's was. At the time, looking at Arsenal were relatively easy to deal with. They made 2 bids. The first one was something like 85 million for Declan Rice. And then the second one was 100 million with 5 million in bonuses because Man City pulled out between those 2 bids. West Ham wanted a lot of the money up front. There was a bit of haggling, so normally that would be paid over 5 years. In the end, Arsenal agreed to pay it in 3 instalments over 18 months. You don't get that too much. And I maintained as soon as I had Tottenham coming in, Daniel Levy will not do what Arsenal did in this situation. They just will not. They will not do that type of thing. They will make it as difficult as possible. They'll spread it over the length of time and drag it out. And at that point, you just think, is it really worth it? How desperate are we to sell this player? I know what the narrative is. I don't need to be told. I don't need to remind you about the narrative that West Ham don't have any money. But we do, as I've said numerous occasions, what's the point in having 3 billionaire owners and the facility that actually we can spend money if we want, if we just can't make a cash injection? We saw it the other day. Look, we were constantly told Aston Villa have to sell a player before the 30th of June because they were in trouble. They weren't like us. They didn't have that leeway, that financial wriggle room. They had to bring in 55 million pound or something before the 30th of June. That's why there was this whole Jacob Ramsey stuff. That's why they were looking to sell players. In the end, they just sold themselves their ladies team, which is what Chelsea had done. Chelsea's ladies team, they did it for 200 million. You have to be seen to get a fair and proper price. And Aston Villa went with 55 million. Why 55 million? Well, I guess it was pretty much precisely, apparently, the amount of money that they needed to balance the books. West Ham can sell, if West Ham really wanted to, West Ham could not sell Mohammed Kudus. And I'm quite sure we could find, particularly given the profile of West Ham women's team and the BBC documentary and all the rest of it, I'm quite sure that we could make a case that we could sell that to ourselves for 65 million, and actually it's just, whatever is it. It's easy for me, it's not my money, but I just think that other owners are doing it, why aren't we doing it? Kretinsky's worth a load of money, Sullivan's worth a load of money, Tripp Smith's worth a load of money. I understand the Golds might want to sell their shares, and I get that, but they can still do something and they dilute their shareholding. There's still something that could be done. So with that in mind, what I'm saying is there's an option. We don't have to sell Mohammed Kudus. We don't have to. And I also want to... There's a sentimental thing, which is the rivalry thing. Do you want to see a player go to Tottenham? No. Do you want to strengthen Tottenham? No. So at some point you have to... There is a buyout clause for him. And not only could just sign that buyout clause, he insisted upon it. And the buyout clause protects the player and it protects the club. What I don't think you should really be doing is have a buyout clause, and if nobody meets it, and I'm not suggesting Kudus is kicking off, by the way, but you can't then start saying, well, I want to leave and I insist I leave or anything like that. You can't. The parameters under which you can leave the club are really, really well set out in the terms of your contract, which is a Premier League club would have to bid 80 million, 85 million. European club would have to bid 80 million, and a Saudi-based club 120 million. Under those circumstances, the bid has to automatically be accepted. But what you don't have to allow yourself to do is be lowballed and haggled. The leaks have started coming out that actually Tottenham are turning their attentions to the Nice striker. Yeah, I know it's a different position, but this is the news. Guessand, who plays for Nice, and actually they might not go for Kudus, and they'll go for Guessand instead. Yes, rather convenient, to be honest with you. I think, sort of leaking that they're not really going to be prepared to come back with a third bid. I think they will. I think they will come back with a third bid. But West Ham have got to be able to stand their ground here. And I would maintain that Mohammed Kudus is a good player. Well, he's an excellent player, not a good player. I've undersold him there. He was brilliant his first season, crap last season, really. But it doesn't take much to get him back playing towards at his best. And at his best, he is a phenomenal player. He really is. As I mentioned, I do think that he needs to be playing his best position. He can't really play in that position, I guess, because that's Jared Bowen's position. But I still think, there's been times when we could have played him elsewhere. We could have played him in attacking midfield. We could have got more from him. And I'm not convinced that Graham Potter wants to keep him. I think he's probably earmarked other players for that. But again, we have to be prepared to do that. And I do think we're going to be at best a bottom half team next season. I would be delighted. But by all means, you are well within your rights to show me this video and say, hey, you said we'd be in the bottom half. You're well within your rights to gloat if we're not. And I would be happy to see that. I'd love it if we were mixing in the top half. But I think we'll be down the bottom section of the Premier League anyway. And teams that tend to go down and don't have really good players, and Kudus is a really, really good player, and he can make the difference on such things, and so therefore he has a value to us, not just his transfer value, but the value in terms of goals and assists. Yeah, I know there weren't many last season, but we've got to be prepared to keep him, and I think most people would accept if we can improve that midfield and get a settled striker in, then you'd probably find that the other players in the team would operate more effectively. All of them, I mean, no more so than Bowen. And I think if you had an effective midfield and defence, I'll cover that in tomorrow's video. But and I think Potter will marshal a tight and stingy defence next season. I think that will continue. Then you're going to get more from your creative players, and certainly Kudus is one of those. The longer it goes on, the less I'm liking this transfer, and there's a bit of mischief in me. I think it'd be quite funny to walk away and leave Levy hanging and say, do you know what? There you go. You've heard our price. I'm presuming he's heard our price. I don't know. There you go. You've over haggled, mate. You've overplayed it. I did that myself in Curry's once, and I walked away for it. It's not the same, is it? Before it was PC World. It's a story for another time. You don't need to hear my washing machine oven haggling story. I think it's quite a good one. But we'll leave that for another time. Just to reiterate and remind you, really, really big month over on Patreon for prizes. If you want to go and give Patreon a trial, if you want to go and join Patreon, see what it's all about. We've got some match-worn Mark Noble boots, signed Mark Noble shirt. We've got Mark Noble signed armband. We give away loads of prizes, loads and loads of prizes all the time. That's in addition. You just get into prizes just for being a Hammers Chat patron. Plus, you get all the lovely, wonderful content which we do over there. Links in the description below. Patreon.com/Hammers Chat. I'll catch up with you tomorrow. We're gonna have a chat about Nathan Gerd, because unlike the Kudus situation, I really like the club's stance with a Gerd.